UrbanMech, this is your See the Table, and got little Missy curled up over here on the next to the table. And we're looking at yet another issue of Battletechnology, the magazine of combat in the 31st century. This was US dollars, $5. This is issue 18. In trouble now, we say. All right. Oh, let's see, what year, what date, what's the date in the year, damn it. Issue 18, January 30, 52. And what year did we publish this thing in? Yeah, seems like they always move them around a little bit. Every couple issues, they seem like they're in a different damn spot. Come on, somebody's got a date here somewhere. Address is, jeez, I don't know. Actual world day. Some of these are different from others. It just kind of, you know, is what it is. I cannot find a date. What year this was published. You know, it's got to be in the 90s. Magazine Combat in the 31st Century, published bi-monthly, every 2 months by Pacific. Yeah. Copyrights, Postmaster bullshit. Cover, Steve Vendors, James Greason. Yeah, whatever the date may be, right, is what it is. So what we got going on in here? We have Sergeant Speaks His Mind, interview with Gunshao Akito Tomo of the 3rd Militia Company of Luthian, incoming. Luthian attack. Yeah, this was the highlight for probably one of the largest ground battles in BattleTech history in the modern era. Aside from like the battle for Tukiad and the battle for Terra, for example. So Luthian is invaded by, I believe, two clans invade, Smoke Jaguars and Nova Cats, the equivalent of 8 galaxies of forces, if I remember my numbers correctly. And they're defended by about 10, if you don't count all the conventional forces that Luthian would have had defending itself. This is one of those things that always kind of, like I said, it kind of twerks my head a little bit. So Black Luthian, or the heart of the Draconis Combine, you know, House Krita's home world, is one of the most important worlds in the Inner Sphere, especially as far as the Draconis Combine is concerned, the most important world. So it's well defended. To say it didn't have 100+, you know, infantry and tank supported conventional force alone is absurd. You know, the hundreds of millions of people, the billions living on this damn planet. So the standing military defense-wise should have been significant. And then it's got only a handful of frontline troops defending it. Now, in its defense, we know that, like most of the great houses during the invasion of the clans, they were hard pressed. So most of their main and second line troops were pushed forward to engage and tried to stop the clans. And then reserve units were brought up ironically, from the core, because the Inner Sphere has spent most of its existence defending itself against its neighbors inside the Inner Sphere. So obviously the weakest portions of all the great houses is the periphery borders. So the periphery borders were a cakewalk when the clans arrived. The fact that they arrived and with such overwhelming firepower, technology, and training, you know, that doesn't negate the fact that when they hit the Inner Sphere, they hit the Inner Sphere's weakest forces. So when they, you know, their early successes should have been leavened by that knowledge. Instead, the arrogance of a lot of those clans took it to mean that their superiority was everything, and that's all they were going to need to carry the day. And boy, it didn't turn out that way, did it? No. So that said, Luthien's being defended by some pretty tough units. You've got the Otomo, and which is the bodyguard for the coordinator, and they're no joke. And you've got, I believe, the first Sword of Light was present. At least one Sword of Light was present, because they generally always at least one Sword of Light present wherever the coordinator's at. And then there was a couple other secondary support, like the militia kind of stuff. And then there was the Dragon's Claws, Ichinahu, or how it's pronounced, that Takashi scraped together from all of his retired cronies and put them in the field. So there was quite a force, but they understood they were at best even in numbers, which meant they were grossly outgunned by the invading clan. The two invading clans outgunned them something fierce. And that's not including things like the aerospace and naval assets that these clans had with them, and had proven repeatedly, especially the Smoke Jaguars, were not bashful about utilizing them warships as support in the support roles that they're designed for. So, that puts them all in one of those kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. I always look out the window and I see something weird hanging up in there, and I wonder what the hell that is and why is it hanging up in there. And then later I'll go out there and it'll be some kind of jar beach or something that's like from way over the other side. It's like a light pole, light thing. It's just kind of bugging my brain because it looks like a little UFO floating in the bush, and I know damn well it ain't right, and it ain't moved any. So, anyway. So the inner sphere is at a conundrum, because the closest forces that could get to them early enough to make a difference are Federated Suns forces. Hans Davion's, Federated Commonwealth, but Federated Suns specific, and Hans Davion, and it's the well-known hatred between the two houses is epic. Right, so the odds of this the House Davion sending house troops into the Draconis Combine, let alone to Luthien to help defend it, are ludicrous at best and dangerous, because the odds are really good that any forces that had been left behind to defend the Federated Suns portion of the Federated Commonwealth were going to be some of their more diehard fanatical units that won't take kindly to playing with the snakes. They never will. Or the very wet behind the ears and green, led by the same type of people who won't play nice with the snakes and never will. So this is a bad combination. So conveniently, one might argue intentionally, Hans Davion had been sitting on the reins for the contracts for both Wolf's Dragoons and the Calhounds for a better part of the first year of the invasion. So the invasion's going on full tilt, and both Jamie Wolf and Morgan Keller are outright demanding that they be turned loose against the enemy, that they go into action against the clans because they're the best suited to fight them, etc., etc. Well, no, they don't call Hans Davion the Fox for nothing. He kept them on a tight leash for some reason, and you to sit there and say that this was their whole purpose. He kept them in reserve because he knew that eventually that he would need to save the Luthien from an invading force. I would say that's being disingenuous at best and kind of crazy, because I don't think that even as good as he was, Hans wasn't that damn good. But Hans had to know that there was going to become a crucial point somewhere. There would be a linchpin somewhere. There's always, in a significant kind of campaigns of this scale, with this severity and this intensity involved, there's always linchpins. There's always key moments that will pop up and crop up when you least expect them to, and the side that can react to them the fastest with the most impact, usually the one that comes out on the winning side of the situation. So, by the fact that he was able to keep 7 crack veteran and elite status damn troop units on retainer while the world's getting the shit kicked out of them on the other side of the room is something. I mean, it just goes to show you the nerve of Davion. And second, it goes to the foreknowledge, or the not foreknowledge, but the assumption that we're going to have problems, and we need to have the best we can to solve those problems when they occur. It's not the only linchpin. If you think about this, there's a couple more. So when it turns out we get that dual shenanigans where the Word of Blake elements within Comstar doctored up a unit that looked like the Death Commandos to invade Avalon, to New Avalon, to destroy the Nasus about the exact same time that the Death Commandos are striking Cathal and the orbiting the ground bases for the orbiting solar panel arrays that provide the power for the shipyards there, and how critical those shipyards functioning was to the FedCom war effort. So we have critical defenses needed in this location, and another critical one that pops out of nowhere over here. So had either one of those things gone really, really south badly, Hans Davion would have needed reactionary forces. And fortunately for him, in the case of the Cathal, he had somebody that he knew, he trusted, and that had the trust and love of his men. Who, in the case of Davion, freaking Hasek. So Morgan Hasek, and then ends up utilizing basically the leftovers of several good units to create this desperate unit that manages to pull a rabbits out of its ass. Meanwhile, Hans Davion himself in person, elements of Team Bonsai and other walking wounded, paid all over the Wabi's poorly planned out invasion of the Nasus. Right? It is what it is. So the fact Davion's able to send 7 regiments of troops that he had in reserve, only the FedCom and only Davion could have that kind of reserve at this critical point in the intersphere conflict with the initial intersphere with the conflict with the clans. The second thing is that it neatly avoids that tricky scenario of actually had Federated Commonwealth troops in the Draconis Combine fighting to defend House Krita in spite of its own self. Right? And not everybody can pull that off. There's a lot of prime crack military units out there. The Iridani Light Horse, the Northwind Highlanders are tied up, but there's the 21st Century Lancers, there's the Illyrian whatever. So there's numerous major mercenary commands out there with significant resources and capabilities that Hans Davion could have put on the reserve list, and very well may have. This may not have been the only reserve task force that Hans Davion had been squirreling away. But this is the most effective one, and the most effective use of it. It also sends home several messages to the rank and file within the Draconis Combine. Just how serious this threat the clans are, and how serious that the Intersphere leadership takes these people, that they'll come to their bitter enemies' defense, as opposed to letting them get absorbed and taken over by, because it would have been, it would have been a losing proposition for the Intersphere had these. And I mentioned this numerous times in the what if stuff. What if the clans had came in force? What if all the clans had invaded as a force? What if they had come in and invaded all the major houses from the periphery inward? So everybody's fighting on their own fronts. How much harder it would have been for these houses to get together and fill in each other's weaknesses and support each other if that had been the scenario. So the fact is that this battle is pretty crucial. It's pretty interesting. It's very violent. It makes for an awesome storyline. It's in the novels. It's awesome shit. If you haven't read about it, the Battle of Luthien, you really should read the Battle of Luthien. It's worth reading. So we get newsflash: Kai Allard Liao plunges to his death. Ragnar Magnesium lost. Magnuson, I can never pronounce those words. I can never pronounce them. Disaster on New Avalon. Yeah. So in January 5th of 3052, the St. Ives Compact, New Avalon, basically an assassin sneaks in and manages to kill Duchess Candace and her husband Duke Kai Allard Liao, who at the time was the head of intelligence for the Federated Commonwealth, or at least for the Fed Sons portion of it. And although she doesn't actually, the assassin botches the job, and the Duchess actually survives, and she eventually makes her way home to the Compelling Confederation to repay the favor in kind, in person, to her sister. So, right, the thuggy assassin was a sleeper. So Chancellor Romano gloats. Gloat all you can, lady. You won't gloat for many. You won't be gloating for long. The Intersecting Lines, part 1 of the Tales of the Cobalt Coil. So the Cobalt Coil basically is your atypical bar in any house in the Inner Sphere, any major world in the Inner Sphere that your mech warriors tend to hang out at. Right, and the stories that get told around them. So that's basically what the tale of the Cobalt Coil, which is the name of the bar, Cobalt Coil. And there's some really good stories, and some of these were good enough that the authors could have went on to write bigger, full-on novels, but were never tapped to do so, or were unable or unwilling to do so. Because it's one thing to write a short story for your favorite whatever. It's another thing to become an established writing author that make money out of it. That's a lot more work than which a lot of people really appreciate. So Achilles, that clan stopper. We have yet another non-canonical mech here, right? So the Secret of Kepler Station, a scenario for MechWarrior 2, right? I never played MechWarrior 2, so I couldn't tell you one way or another, and this is not the sort of thing I'd have used myself. And I have mixed opinions on it. I mean, for a space station, the layout's kind of crappy, in my opinion. But what's my opinion? Just what do you know? Doesn't matter. So we have, what really happened. The actual attack, the TIE wished to engage in a mech-to-mech duel with a Steel Viper champion, with the provision that the civilians are allowed to leave in his dropship to join the evacuation of the planetary system. Marina Erickson thought of trapping the station and finding room-to-room action. She did not know the full capabilities of Elemental. The senior professor allowed the TIE to issue his challenge, refused Miss Erickson's plea to fight room-to-room on the station. The challenge was accepted. The civilians were allowed to evacuate after the duel was fought. The TIE lost and died in the fight. The civilians are belonging were searched before they were allowed to leave. Marina planted a spy cameras in the dome, etc., etc. So, we got Battletechnology back issue. Right? Decisions. Lesson, making the best of a no-win situation. Right? So, you are a mech warrior in command of a fire lance as part of a house garrison force station on a world near the border of another successor state. Planet is rocky and cold, but holds significant strategic importance. 10 days ago, the planet was attacked by forces of the opposing successor lord as part of a larger offensive. The fighting has not been particularly fierce, and your lance has saved for the counteroffensive when reinforcements arrive. Reinforcements grounded 5 days ago, and the push to drive the invaders off has begun. Now you are part of an assault of one of the enemy's forward landing bases. Alright, so we got extra special offers. Limited offer while they last. Battletechnology The Warriors, issues 1 through 12 in a special Battletechnology binder. Combat efficiency factor, the clans. Break all this proficiency down. The archer fells the hawk. Here is technical readout for the BSD 7K Bushido. The Bushido is the Korean answer to the Hatchetman, but over 7 years of pre-design work, it was pre-designed a much larger, deadlier mech. Right? So it's 75-ton BSD 7K Bushido, 43.2 kph, 64 kph. Jump jet capacity 120 meters. So we're packing a PVC, a large laser, a pair of medium lasers, 2 small lasers, and a Ginsu Corporation katana blade, as opposed to an axe. Alright, Yeah, yeah. No, sadly, I don't. They didn't include any artwork for it. And then we have one, the Achilles, 100-ton earthworks assault mech designed to boot stomp the Jesus out of your foe. All right, here's what it is. Let me look back in here. All right. So, like I said, hit Achilles. There's no artwork for the Bushido, which is sad. I mean, that looked like a nice mech design. Okay, so we have the excessive earlier medium models, right? So Works has created the HCH-09S Achilles, 21 mile an hour kph, with maximum speed of 32. It's a slow bugger, ain't getting around that. We're packing, what is that, 19 tons of armor, you can't knock that. We got 3 Model A gauze rifles, 2 medium lasers, 1 tandem mount twin laser, 3 machine guns, and an anti-missile system. So your primary weapons are going to be them 3 gauze rifles, right? Yeah. I never played one, never operated, so I have no idea how well they work. And of course, being that anything in Battletechnology is not considered canonical, it's considered non-canon unless it gets reintroduced in another product. So perhaps one of the best variants of the UrbanMech. Everybody loves to pick on the UrbanMech, the little Urbie who could. And considering its very specific role parameters, I've always said that Urbie's quite a good mech for what it's designed to do. And if you utilize it in the environment it's meant to operate in those narrow ranges that it's really suited to do, then it's very good at what it does. But one of its biggest primary flaws, aside from its slow movement, is its limited ammo capacity. The fact is that AC-10 only got X amount of shots, and it doesn't take long to burn through them. And then you're hoofing that little slow, cumbersome mech back to your supply base, and hoping wherever it is, or you're risking your supply assets by having them come forward into the war zone to resupply your mech quicker, which can be the difference between it being functional or not. You know, when people talk about battlefields on a campaign scale, this is something we miss or we lose out on when we're talking about dealing with the stuff on the table scale, when you're looking at the lance, maybe even at the company scale, as opposed to the grander scheme of things. If you have 50% of your ground force, if you come in with a regiment of mechs, and 50% of them are missile boats, they require a whole hell of a lot of munitions. This means you need to bring the resources to bring those munitions to the field too. So it's not just your drop ship coming in with your mechs, but your drop ships are loaded with the ammunition to keep those mechs in the field for any length of time that make a difference. And in order to make that possible, you need to either get the munitions to the mechs or the mechs to the munitions. So in a lot of places, this is where you field your drop ship in a centralized location, so everybody can funnel back to resupply and go back out to the front line. Well, the opposite side of that, of course, is marshaling some logistics ability. You need a supply train to take the weapon, the supplies to the equipment, or to the people who need it, as opposed to bringing the equipment to the people. And then there's the how do you protect all this stuff? You see how as a campaign things go on. So let's talk about that. Let's say I have a company of light mechs, mostly urban mechs, and I as a defender, I choose to use them to defend my key industrial plant city, because this industrial city includes the munition factories that keep my side, rolling while we're fighting. So it's not enough to keep stuff on a stockpile of it and to get it to your force, but if you have the means to make more, you want to keep that means rolling while you're in the middle of something. The downside here is that if I have this company of mostly urban mechs, which are notorious ammo hounds, ammo hands. That means I, as a defender, I have need to pre-position stockpiles of reloads for my mechs close by. So somewhere in the city is going to be my stockpile. Possibly more than one. If I had my way, there'd be more than one. And then there would be secondary ones. You'd have a centralized one, and that's further, very far away. And then you have a next one, and then the immediate one. That way, if the first one gets eliminated or gets out of position, you can't get to it, or vice versa, you have fallbacks. And if you get back to where the main ones have got up, you're done. Your logistics chain's there for a reason. If they can break that chain, you might find yourself in a different kind of fight at that point. So the downside, of course, is that if I field a company of mechs, statistically speaking, 1 out of 3 lances should be out of commission at all times. What? What do you mean? We're fighting a war. Yeah, I know you're fighting a war. I know that, Chuckles. I get that. But keep in mind, it takes time to resupply. So if you've got a mech who goes through its ammo pretty fast, if you've got a missile bolt that fires through its ammo, and you like to hose that missile fire around real heavy, you need to be able to resupply that damn mech. Well, that mech is vulnerable when it's being resupplied. So trying to bring the ammo carriers and the equipment to reload your mech into up to the front line is just asking for, that's just stupid on the best of terms. Putting your viable support assets in frontline risk is just stupid, unless it's desperate. Unless you're in desperate. If you're in desperation mode, that changes everything. But this is not how you do things. The opposite of that means your force needs to go to the supply. So you sometimes try to meet in between. So if I got a large city and I've got 12 mechs that are defending it, and my supply depot is on the other side on the far side of the west side of the city, and all the action starts taking place is on the east side of the city. Well, I did a piss poor job of trying to pre-position my supplies. I'd have been better situated to put it somewhere more central, because then my force could radiate out from it, right? So that said, I got 12 mechs in the field, and you're invading me with a company of troops. Well, the odds are real good that the initial conflict doesn't get settled right off the bat. If you don't initially overwhelm your opponent and put him down, then you're in a protracted engagement. At some point, one or more of your mechs are going to be ammo depleted, or depleted at a critical level, because only a fool lets them completely run empty. You really need to have at least 1 or 2 rounds to go in those things in case they need to defend themselves on the way back to the supply depot. So, if I have to resupply on a regular basis and my battle lasts more than a few minutes, we're talking a campaign where it can last weeks and months, well, then that means my rotation factor, I'm going to have 2 lances of mechs out, and the third is going to be hoofing back for resupply and repair. Repair any ammo or any armor damage that you can repair, because that's the quickest and easiest repairs you can do in the field, and your ammo replenishment, absolutely critical to have. That said, the best way to mitigate this, especially if you are an opposing force that know you're going somewhere where logistics is going to be a problem, where bringing enough resources with you, enough ammunition with you to keep your missile boats supplied for a 2-month-long campaign without needing another busload of, another shipload of ammo to show up soon, you've got to pre-plan for this stuff. And if you don't do it significantly, you find yourself in a situation. The opposing opposite side of that goes too for defenders. Once again, our company of mostly UrbanMechs is tied to its supply depot. So if somehow you can oppose your force, your enemy force, find their supply depots and eliminate them, you can defang their offensive capabilities pretty quick. That's traditional basic 101 tactics when it comes to large scale conflict, which a lot of the small table stuff is not even remote. This is a skirmish. Whenever you sit down at a table with a lance or a couple lances and you're going at each other, and it's whatever you want to call the scenario that sets it up, at the end of the day, that's just a brief skirmish in a much bigger scheme of things. Numerous contacts over a period of time, not just a few minutes of absolute terror and then we're done. Now, this is the clan's philosophy. We come in, we fight, and we're done. That's not how real world works. And the inner sphere is everything but, or everything real when it comes to that kind of crap. So somebody come up with this idea, and I thought it was pretty damn slick, and I've liked it ever since. And they called it the UrbanMech. So the UrbanMech is the maligned but much modified UrbanMech. So after the first wave of clan invasions, modifications of existing BattleMechs, particularly those that have shown themselves to be useful during the invasion, began to flood the Battletechnology offices. Keep them coming, please. Interesting coincidence was the arrival the same day of a paper on UrbanMech modifications from Tech Teams Margaret, Spain, and the Firehawks Combat Report on their SuburbanMech. When the considerations of fighting clan mechs and attempting to fight at closer ranges to nullify their long-range advantage. Therefore, it's time to take a hard look at potential all of our specialized mechs. So in this case, what they did was they removed the kinetic-based weapons from the original mech. They took away the AC-10. And they replaced the AC-10 with a heavy laser and a pair of short-range missiles. So I think the original was a AC-10 and a small laser. So they pulled both those off, and they replaced them with a pair of SRM-2s and a large laser. So now we have the equivalent damage capacity of what our AC-10 gave us with, for all intents and purposes, an unlimited amount of ammunition, because you don't ever have to reload your laser. You just got to worry about overheating the damn mech. And the weight difference, so they were able to, another critical problem with the UrbanMech being that it's heavy, it's mostly ammo-based weapon system, was the internal risk of a catastrophic ammo failure. So you get an internal explosion, it guts the mech. So most of the more modern mechs, they put case in them whenever possible to help mitigate the worst of that. Well, there's still not enough room in here. So by removing the ammo bay, so now we not only remove the AC-10, but the ammo for it as well. So now we don't have that internal bomb we're toting around. One less thing to go boom when shit gets, when things get ugly. So they replace them with the energy-based weapons, and this basically makes this little booger field friendly. That means it can just stay out there in the field forever, as long as the mech pilot's got access to food and water, and a reasonable reason for doing so. They could be out there commando style forever. The other advantage was that really helps the UrbanMech out is that the weight savings from changing the weapon loadout allows the UrbanMech to swap out its tiny damn motor engine for a slightly less tiny engine. So it actually picks up a few extra kph from the bigger motor. So in this case, we end up with a cruising speed of 43 and a maximum cruising speed of 64. So we've damn near gave it a quarter more increase in speed. This makes it, even though it's a light mech and as slow as molasses for a light mech, much more viable, in the urban environment with the speed increase and the energy-based weapons. I think in the long run, probably would have been the best variant for the UrbanMech, and I've said that from way back because there are variants of their, everybody that's played long enough makes variants of something. So you take your favorite mech and tweak it to make it even more whatever. So I've seen variants with energy-based weapons in the UrbanMechs in the past. The only difference was I never saw an increase in the speed. It was just they just up-armored it, gave it more weapons and maybe a little more armor, but they didn't affect the speed in any way, which I thought, okay, well, if this allowed you to do that, it's an excellent design. I mean, you really, can't go wrong with that kind of, in my mind anyway. So, it says, during the final days of Star League, UrbanMechs defended major centers throughout the inner sphere. Large numbers of UrbanMechs remain operational despite heavy losses during the fighting. While largely effective when fighting in a limited role in the inner city defense, so we all know about their classic design flaws. All right, so this was design one, UrbanMech mod, it's 30 ton, and it's now got a 120 GM fusion engine in its power plant instead of the old one, changed out the heavy laser and changed out the autocannon for heavy laser and light light laser for a pair of SRM packs. And these are packs, so these are single shot SRMs. I guess that's something important to note. So when we're talking the packs, that means there's not going to be ammo reloads for them, which is fine because, yeah. Pair of 4-tube short-range missile launchers. So once the ammo's, that should be SRM2. It's not. It just says 2 Holly short-range. It should be SRM4. It doesn't say that, or I'm not looking. Yeah, it says it's, I'm looking at the right place. It says it down here. And a reload of 25. I stand corrected. So the bastards kept the ammo in there. That was stupid. Why did I see the one that didn't have the ammo? All right. Then over here we have one that's just up armored. Once again, they left the engine alone, so this cruise speed at 21 kph. And this place they swapped out the H, so we get rid of the autocannon, place it with a PPC, and then we keep the light laser and add 6 machine guns, which then means we have to have 1 ton of 1 ton of machine gun ammo in the right torso. And where did I read that? See, I don't know where I read a variant somewhere that didn't have any ammo-based shit at all. Right? That's the way to go, is no ammo-based at all. This one's definitely got some in it. Right? But we got pretty nice design, and I like this design one here because it increases speed. To, you know, the heavy laser just basically makes this mech and going to run the field without having to worry about a supply issue. But nothing changes the fact we end up with these things, and they're still not. You're never done tweaking with them, right? You just never know what's going to come out the next. So here is the UMR90 SuburbanMech. All right, new for BattleTech. The old bore dies. Habitat from the Tharked Herald, Tharked Federated Commonwealth. Liking Duke Sevelin Kesla III to the boar of his family. Yeah, he was a character and a half. So anyway, there's your technical manual. Battletechnology. I really wish they still produced these things. I really do. That's just my personal opinion on it, of course. Anyway, my opinion. Little Missy's over here cleaning herself. Have yourself a great weekend.